You lie down, and the world begins to hush. The air around you softens, and your breath becomes a tide, gentle, rhythmic, steady. This is where the journey begins, not with noise, but with quiet, not with answers, but with listening. Welcome back to the Soft Light Theory, where science is not a lecture, but a lullaby, where your mind is not a puzzle to solve, but a landscape to explore. In our last episode, you wandered through the winding paths of neuroplasticity versus habit. You learned how habits are grooves in the brain's terrain, deep, familiar, often unconscious, and how neuroplasticity, like soft rain, can reshape those grooves, reroute the flow, and carve new paths. You saw how repetition builds structure, and how awareness can gently undo it. Tonight, you begin a new chapter, a deeper one. This episode is called Neuroplasticity After Trauma. Can you rebuild emotional balance? And it unfolds across 10 gentle chapters, each a step in the journey from fragmentation to wholeness. You'll explore how trauma leaves its imprint, how the nervous system learns to expect danger, and how safety can be relearned. You'll walk through the emotional brain, the body's memory, the lantern of reflection, and the healing power of connection. Each chapter is a soft thread, woven through breath, sensation, and story. Together, they form a tapestry of becoming, not by forgetting, but by remembering differently. So settle in. Let your breath guide you. Let your body rest. Let your mind open like a quiet field at dusk. The journey begins now, and you are ready. Chapter 1. The Brain Beneath the Storm. Your brain is not a fortress. It is a field. It is not made of stone, but of cells that shimmer and shift. Neurons, like fireflies, blink and pass signals across vast networks. Glial cells cradle them, nourish them, clean up the debris, and together they form the living architecture of thought, emotion, and memory. When trauma strikes, whether through loss, fear, violence, or silence, it does not break the brain, it reshapes it. Like wind carving new lines into sand, trauma leaves impressions. Some are subtle, some are deep, but all are real. You may not see them. There is no scar on the surface, but inside, the rhythms change. The amygdala, your brain's alarm bell, grows louder. The prefrontal cortex, your center of reflection, dims. The hippocampus, your memory keeper, becomes confused, blurring time, distorting sequence. It is as if a storm has passed through your neural forest. Some trees remain upright, others lean, broken, and some paths, once clear, are now tangled in undergrowth. But here is the quiet truth. The forest is still alive. The brain beneath the storm is still growing, still listening, still capable of healing. Neuroplasticity does not stop when trauma begins. In fact, it becomes more vital, because healing is not the absence of pain. It is the presence of change. Imagine your brain as a garden. Trauma may scorch the soil, uproot the flowers, scatter the seeds, but beneath the surface, the roots remain. And with time, with care, with sunlight and water, new growth begins. This is not a metaphor. It is biology. Studies show that even after severe trauma, the brain can regenerate connections. New neurons can form, old pathways can be pruned, and emotional balance, once lost, can be relearned. But it does not happen all at once. It begins with safety, with stillness, with the gentle act of noticing. Tonight, you notice. You notice the way your breath moves through your chest. You notice the way your thoughts drift, like clouds across a quiet sky. You notice the way your body holds tension, and the way it begins to release. This noticing is not passive, it is active, neuroplasticity, because every time you bring awareness to your body, your mind, your emotions, you are rewiring. You are telling your brain, this moment is safe. This moment is new. This moment is not the storm. And slowly, the brain listens. The amygdala quiets. The prefrontal cortex brightens. The hippocampus begins to sort memory with more clarity. You are not erasing the past. You are rebalancing the present. There is a term in neuroscience, experience-dependent plasticity. It means your brain changes based on what you live through, but it also means your brain changes based on what you choose to live through again. If trauma shaped your brain once, healing can shape it again. You do not need to force this. You do not need to rush. The brain is patient. It listens to repetition. It responds to rhythm. So tonight, you rest. You let your breath be the rhythm. You let your thoughts be the repetition. You let your body be the garden. And in this garden, you begin to plant new seeds. Seeds of safety. Seeds of curiosity. Seeds of softness. You may not see them sprout tonight, but they are there, and the soil is ready. As you drift deeper, you begin to feel the architecture of recovery, not as a blueprint, but as a feeling, a sense of spaciousness, a sense of possibility. Your brain is not broken, it is rebuilding, and every moment of rest is part of that rebuilding. You are not alone in this. Millions of minds have weathered storms, and millions of minds have healed. Because healing is not a miracle, it is a process, it is a science, it is a story your brain tells itself, again and again, until it believes. And tonight, the story begins. You feel the quiet beneath the thunder. You feel the stillness beneath the memory. You feel the brain beneath the storm. You begin to wonder, if trauma reshapes the brain, what else might reshape it? What gentle force could soften the grooves, retune the rhythms, and help the body remember calm? Perhaps the answer lies in the way emotions leave their mark, how fear, grief, and love shape the very structure of your mind. Perhaps the next step is to listen to those emotional imprints, to understand how they settle into the folds of your brain like echoes in a canyon. Let's follow that question into the next chapter, where the emotional imprint of trauma begins to speak. Chapter 2. Emotional Imprints, How Trauma Leaves Its Mark. The summary of this chapter: trauma is not just a shadow in memory, it's a contour in the brain's terrain. It lingers like a scent in the air, subtle but shaping every breath. Neurons remember what the mind forgets, holding echoes of fear and pain. Yet even the deepest grooves can be softened by warmth, by time, by care. Tonight, you'll explore how emotion becomes biology and how biology can heal. You lie still, cocooned in quiet. The world outside fades into a hush, and inside, your thoughts begin to drift, not away, but inward. You are entering the landscape of memory, where emotion leaves its fingerprints on the architecture of your mind. Trauma is not a single event. It is a ripple, a resonance, a lingering vibration in the nervous system. When something overwhelms you, too fast, too much, too soon, your body records it. Not like a diary entry, but like a scar. The amygdala, your brain's emotional sentinel, flares in alarm. It tags the moment with urgency, with fear, with survival. And the hippocampus, the librarian of your memories, tries to file it away. But trauma resists filing. It loops, it echoes, it embeds. Imagine your brain as a forest. Each experience is a footstep on the path. Most steps fade with time, covered by new leaves, softened by rain. But trauma is a heavy boot in wet clay. It leaves a deep print. And unless something comes to smooth the soil, the print remains. These imprints are not just psychological, they are physical. Neurons change shape, synapses rewire. Cortisol, the stress hormone, floods your system, altering how your body responds to future stress. You become hypervigilant, scanning for danger even in safety. Or you go numb, like a deer, frozen in headlights. These are not choices. They are adaptations. Your body is wise. It does not forget what once threatened it. But sometimes, that wisdom becomes a burden. You react to shadows as if they are storms. You flinch at kindness, expecting harm. You avoid joy, fearing its loss. This is the legacy of trauma. A nervous system tuned to survival, even when survival is no longer at stake. But here is the gentle truth. What is wired can be rewired. What is etched can be softened. The brain is not stone, it is clay. Neuroplasticity is its gift. With new experiences, new relationships, new rhythms, the forest can regrow. The path can be retread. The bootprint can fade. Let's walk slowly through how this happens. When you experience something emotionally intense, your brain releases neurotransmitters, chemical messengers like norepinephrine and dopamine. These amplify the signal, making the moment more memorable. It's why you remember where you were during a crisis, but forget what you had for lunch last Tuesday. Emotion sharpens memory, but trauma distorts this process. It floods the system. The amygdala becomes overactive, like a smoke alarm that won't stop beeping. The prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain that reasons, reflects, and regulates, goes offline. You're left with raw sensation, unprocessed and overwhelming. Over time, this imbalance can become chronic. You may feel anxious without knowing why. You may avoid places, people, or feelings that remind you of the original wound. This is not weakness. It is your brain trying to protect you. Yet protection can become isolation, and healing begins with reconnection. One way the brain begins to heal is through co-regulation, the calming presence of another. When someone sits with you, listens without judgment, breathes slowly beside you, your nervous system begins to mirror theirs. Your heart rate slows, your muscles unclench. You feel safe enough to feel. This is not magic, it is biology. The vagus nerve, which runs from your brainstem to your gut, plays a key role. It governs the parasympathetic nervous system, the rest and digest mode. When activated, it lowers stress hormones, reduces inflammation, and fosters a sense of calm. Eye contact, gentle touch, and rhythmic breathing all stimulate this nerve. They are ancient tools of healing. Another pathway is narrative. When you tell your story, not just the facts, but the feelings, you begin to integrate the experience. The fragmented pieces of memory start to connect. The prefrontal cortex re-engages. You move from reaction to reflection. Writing can help. So can speaking. Even thinking in coherent sentences about what happened begins to reshape the neural map. You are not erasing the past. You are reweaving it into your present. Therapies like EMDR, eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, use bilateral stimulation, like tapping or eye movements, to help the brain process traumatic memories. It's as if the brain needs a rhythm, a beat, to walk through the forest again without fear. Mindfulness is another gentle tool. When you sit with your breath, observe your thoughts without judgment, and return to the present moment. You train your brain to tolerate stillness. You learn that discomfort can be witnessed without being feared. Over time, this builds resilience. But healing is not linear. Some days, the forest feels dark again. The bootprints reappear. You may feel like you've gone backward. This is normal. The nervous system is cyclical. It moves in waves, not straight lines. What matters is not perfection, but presence. Each time you return to safety, to connection, to breath, you reinforce the new path. You teach your brain that the world is not always dangerous, that you are not always alone, that healing is possible. Let's pause here and imagine a metaphor. Picture a violin string. Trauma tightens it until every touch feels sharp. Healing loosens it, slowly, until it can vibrate with music again. The string is still the same, but its tension has changed. Its tone has softened. You are that string, and your music is returning. Science shows that even in adulthood, the brain can grow new neurons, a process called neurogenesis. The hippocampus, damaged by chronic stress, can regenerate. The amygdala can quiet. The prefrontal cortex can strengthen. These changes are not just theoretical, they are visible in brain scans. Healing is not just a feeling, it is a physical transformation. But it begins with gentleness, with sleep, with safety, with slowness. Tonight, as you lie here, your breath is already part of that healing. Each inhale nourishes your cells. Each exhale releases tension. Your body is listening. Your brain is adapting. Even now, new pathways are forming. You do not need to rush. The forest grows in its own time. And as you walk this path, you may begin to notice something else, the imprint of joy. Just as trauma leaves marks, so does love. So does awe. So does wonder. These too shape your brain. These too become part of your story. So let yourself feel. Let yourself remember. Let yourself imagine a future where the clay is soft again, where the footprints are light, where the forest sings. Because healing is not forgetting. It is remembering differently. It is walking the same path, with new shoes, new eyes, new rhythm. And as you continue this journey, you may begin to wonder, not just how trauma changes the brain, but how the brain itself changes over time. How memory evolves, how identity forms, how the self is sculpted by experience. You may begin to ask, let's follow the thread into the next chapter. Chapter 3. Neuroplasticity, the brain's gentle rebuilding. The summary of this chapter: neuroplasticity is your brain's quiet ability to rebuild itself. It's like moss growing over broken stone, softening what was sharp. Every breath, every thought, every moment of safety rewires you. You'll begin to see how healing is not a leap. It's a rhythm, a slow, cellular dance toward wholeness. You lie in stillness, wrapped in the hush of night. The world outside has quieted, and inside, something subtle begins to stir. Not in your thoughts, but beneath them, in the soft architecture of your brain. You are not just resting, you are rebuilding. Neuroplasticity is the brain's ability to change, not just in childhood, but throughout life. It is the gentle art of adaptation, the way your neurons reshape themselves in response to experience. Like rivers carving new paths through stone, your thoughts leave trails, and over time, those trails become roads. Imagine your brain as a garden. Each neuron is a root, each connection a vine. When you learn something new, a seed is planted. When you repeat it, the roots deepen. When you feel safe, the soil becomes rich. And when you're hurt, some branches wither, but others reach toward light. This is not metaphor alone. It is biology. Your brain contains billions of neurons, each capable of forming thousands of connections. These synapses are not fixed. They strengthen with use, weaken with neglect, and reroute when needed. If one path is blocked, another can be forged. This is neuroplasticity, the brain's quiet resilience. Let's begin with the first rhythm. Experience shapes structure. When you practice a skill, whether it's playing piano or calming your brain responds. Repetition signals importance. Neurons that fire together begin to wire together. The myelin sheath, a fatty layer around axons, thickens with use, making signals faster and more efficient. It's like paving a dirt road into a smooth highway. But this process is not limited to conscious learning. Emotional experiences shape the brain just as powerfully. When you feel safe, your prefrontal cortex, the part responsible for reflection and regulation, grows stronger. When you feel threatened, your amygdala, the alarm system, becomes more reactive. Neuroplasticity does not judge, it simply responds. This is why healing takes time. You are not just changing your thoughts, you are changing your brain. Now the second rhythm, change is possible at any age. For decades, scientists believed the brain was fixed after childhood. But research has revealed otherwise. Even in adulthood, new neurons can grow, a process called neurogenesis. The hippocampus, involved in memory and emotion, is especially fertile. With the right conditions, sleep, movement, novelty, it continues to bloom. This means your past does not define your future. The patterns you learned in pain can be unlearned in peace. The grooves carved by trauma can be softened by care. You are not stuck, you are sculptable. But neuroplasticity is not passive. It requires engagement. Attention is the gardener's hand. What you focus on, you feed. What you repeat, you reinforce. This is why mindfulness matters. When you bring awareness to your breath, your body, your thoughts, you begin to choose your pathways. You become the architect of your own healing. And now, the third rhythm, connection, rewires the brain. You do not heal alone. Relationships are among the most powerful forces in neuroplasticity. When someone looks at you with kindness, your mirror neurons activate. You feel seen. When someone listens without judgment, your nervous system settles. You feel safe. These moments are not fleeting. They leave marks. Oxytocin, the bonding hormone, floods your system during connection. It lowers cortisol, reduces inflammation, and fosters trust. Over time, these interactions reshape your brain's response to stress. You learn that not all touch is danger, that not all silence is abandonment, that not all closeness is loss. Even virtual connection, like the one we share now, can soothe. Words have weight. Tone has texture. Presence, even imagined, can be healing. So tonight, as you lie here, know this. Your brain is listening. Not just to sound, but to safety. Not just to meaning, but to rhythm. Each breath you take sends a signal. Each moment of stillness lays a stone. You are building something, and it is beautiful. Let's pause and imagine a metaphor. Picture a broken vase, shattered but not discarded. Instead, each piece is carefully gathered. Gold is melted and poured into the cracks. This is kintsugi, the Japanese art of repair. The vase becomes whole again, not despite its breaks, but because of them. The gold does not hide the damage. It honors it. Your brain is like that vase. Neuroplasticity is the gold. You are not returning to who you were. You are becoming someone new. But this process is slow. It requires rest. It requires repetition. It requires gentleness. Sleep plays a vital role. During deep sleep, your brain consolidates memories, clears waste, and strengthens connections. It is not idle. It is pruning, planting, preparing. This is why bedtime matters. It is not just the end of the day. It is the beginning of renewal. Movement helps too. Exercise increases blood flow, stimulates neurogenesis, and boosts mood. Even a walk, even a stretch, sends ripples through your neural garden. You do not need intensity, you need consistency. And novelty, the spark of something new, ignites growth. A new song, a new idea, a new perspective. These moments light up the brain, encouraging exploration. Curiosity is fertilizer. So as you drift tonight, let yourself wonder. Let yourself imagine. Let yourself believe that change is not only possible, it is already happening. You are not broken. You are becoming. And as your brain rewires, your sense of self begins to shift. You no longer define yourself by what hurt you. You begin to see the strength in your softness, the wisdom in your wounds, the beauty in your becoming. This is neuroplasticity, not a miracle, a rhythm, a quiet rebuilding. And as you continue this journey, you may begin to ask, if the body can relearn calm, what about the places where fear lives deepest? Can the amygdala, the brain's watchful sentinel, learn to rest? Can the memory of fear be softened by safety, reshaped by trust? Let's follow that question into the next chapter. Chapter 4. Safety and the Nervous System. Finding calm in the body. The summary of this chapter: your nervous system listens for danger, but it also listens for peace. Trauma tunes it to alarm, but safety can retune it to stillness. Like a bird returning to a quiet nest, your body can relearn calm. Tonight, you'll explore how breath, warmth, and presence restore balance, and how the body becomes a sanctuary again. There is a rhythm inside you. It pulses beneath thought, beneath emotion. It is the rhythm of your nervous system, a quiet conductor shaping how you feel, how you move, how you respond to the world. You do not choose this rhythm. It chooses you, based on what it senses, based on what it remembers. Your nervous system is always listening, not with ears, but with skin, breath, heartbeat. It listens for danger. It listens for safety. It is ancient, designed to protect you. When it hears threat, it prepares you to run, to fight, to freeze. This is not weakness. It is wisdom. It is the body's way of saying, I want to keep you alive. But sometimes, the system becomes too alert. It begins to hear danger in silence, in stillness, in moments that are meant to be safe. This is what trauma does. It retunes the nervous system to alarm. It teaches the body to expect harm, even when harm is no longer present. You may feel this as restlessness, as tension in your shoulders, as a racing heart in a quiet room, as the inability to fully exhale. Your body is not betraying you. It is remembering. It is trying to protect you from what it once endured. But memory is not destiny. The nervous system can change. It can relearn safety. It can retune itself to calm. This is the gift of neuroplasticity, the brain and body's ability to reshape, to adapt, to heal. And healing begins not in thought, but in sensation, in the language of the body. Imagine a bird startled by a loud sound. It flies away, heart pounding, wings beating fast. But if the world remains quiet, if the wind is gentle, if the tree is still, the bird returns to its nest. Your body is like that bird. It wants to come home. It wants to rest. You can help it, not by forcing calm, but by inviting it. Begin with breath. Not deep, not dramatic, just gentle. A slow inhale, a slower exhale. Each breath tells your body, you are safe. Each breath is a signal, a whisper to the nervous system. There is no danger here. Then, warmth. Wrap yourself in a blanket. Hold a warm cup of tea. Feel the heat on your skin. Warmth is ancient. It reminds the body of closeness, of comfort, of being held. Next, presence. Not in the mind, but in the body. Feel your feet on the floor. Feel your back against the chair. Notice the weight of your hands. This is grounding. It brings the nervous system into the now. It says, you are here. You are okay. And then connection. The presence of another. A voice. A touch. A shared silence. Safety is relational. Your nervous system listens not only to your own signals, but to the signals of others. A calm voice can soothe. A gentle gaze can reassure. A steady presence can help your body remember what peace feels like. This is co-regulation. The way nervous systems speak to each other. The way calm is contagious. You do not have to do this alone. Your body heals in relationship, in connection, in shared stillness. And slowly, the rhythm begins to change. The pulse softens, the breath deepens, the muscles release. You begin to feel safe, not just in thought, but in sensation. This is not a trick. It is biology. It is the nervous system responding to safety, retuning itself to peace. And with repetition, this becomes familiar. The body begins to expect calm. It begins to seek it. You may notice moments of ease, a quiet joy, a sense of spaciousness, a feeling of being at home in your own skin. These are signs that your nervous system is healing, signs that safety is becoming the default, not the exception. But healing is not linear. There will be days when the alarm returns, when the body tenses, when fear rises. This is okay. This is part of the rhythm. The nervous system is learning. It is practicing. Each time you return to calm, you strengthen the pathway. You deepen the memory of safety. And over time, the body begins to trust. It begins to believe, not just hope, that peace is possible. You become the safe place, not just for yourself, but for others. Your calm becomes a beacon. Your stillness becomes a refuge. And the nervous system, once tuned to alarm, begins to hum with quiet. This is the journey, from vigilance to rest, from tension to ease, from survival to presence. And as you continue this journey, you may begin to ask, if the brain can change, what else can? Can emotion be rewired? Can perception be reshaped? Can the very way you feel be softened, soothed, transformed? Let's follow that question into the next chapter. Chapter 5. The amygdala's memory, fear, and the emotional brain. The summary of this chapter. Deep in your brain, the amygdala holds the memory of fear. It's a sentinel, always watching, but it can learn to rest. Through gentle repetition, it begins to trust again. You'll discover how fear fades when safety becomes familiar, and how even the most vigilant guardian can be soothed. There is a place deep inside your brain, small and almond-shaped, tucked quietly beneath layers of thought and memory. It is called the amygdala. It does not speak in words. It speaks in pulses, in urgency, in the language of survival. It is ancient, older than language, older than logic, older than the stories you tell yourself. The amygdala is your sentinel. It watches. It waits. It listens for danger, always ready to sound the alarm. You feel its presence in your body before your mind catches up. A racing heart, a sudden breath, a tightening in your chest. The amygdala reacts before you understand why. It remembers, not with images or timelines, but with sensation. It holds the memory of fear like a lantern in the dark, ready to light it again if the world begins to feel unsafe. Even when the threat is gone, the memory remains. The amygdala does not forget easily. It is designed to protect you, to keep you alive. But sometimes it becomes too vigilant. It begins to see danger in shadows, in silence, in moments meant for peace. This is what trauma does. It teaches the amygdala to expect harm, to prepare for it, to guard against it, even when the world is quiet. You may feel this in your body, a restlessness, a sense of unease, a feeling that something is wrong, even when everything is right. This is not weakness. It is memory. It is the body's way of saying, I've been hurt before. But memory is not destiny. The amygdala can learn. It can change. It can rest. Not through force, not through argument, but through repetition, through gentle, consistent safety. Imagine a child startled by thunder. Each time the sky darkens, they flinch. But if the storm passes without harm, again and again, they begin to trust the rain. Your amygdala is like that child. It needs proof, not once, but many times. It needs to see that safety is not a trick. This is where healing begins, in the quiet, in the ordinary, in the slow rhythm of breath, in the softness of a familiar room, in the presence of someone who feels safe. Each time you feel calm in a place that once felt dangerous, your amygdala takes note. It begins to rewrite its map. It redraws the borders between threat and peace. This is neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to change, to reshape itself in response to experience. The amygdala, though ancient, is not fixed. It listens. It learns. It adapts. You can help it by creating rituals of safety, by returning to places that feel calm, by breathing slowly when fear arises, by reminding yourself again and again that the present is not the past. This is not easy. Fear is persuasive. It speaks with urgency. It demands attention. But you are not powerless. You have tools, your breath, your awareness, your ability to pause and observe. When you notice fear rising, you can greet it like an old friend. You can say, I see you. You can ask, are you warning me or remembering? This question matters because sometimes fear is not about now. It is about then. It is about a moment long gone, echoing through the corridors of your nervous system. The amygdala does not know time. It reacts as if the past is still happening. But you do know time. You can remind it. You can say, that was then. This is now. You can show it through your actions that the world has changed, that you are safe. Over time, this changes the brain. The amygdala begins to quiet. It no longer sounds the alarm so quickly. It begins to trust your judgment. This is not erasure. The memory remains, but it is softened. It is no longer sharp. It no longer controls the moment. You may still feel fear, but it passes more easily. It does not linger. It does not define you. This is the gift of repetition, of gentle exposure, of choosing, again and again, to return to safety. And sometimes, the amygdala surprises you. It lets go. It rests. It watches, but does not warn. This is healing. Not the absence of fear, but the presence of trust. You begin to notice the world differently. Colors seem brighter. Sounds feel softer. Your body feels less guarded. You begin to feel safe in places that once felt sharp. You begin to feel at home in your own skin. And the amygdala, once a sentinel, becomes a quiet companion, still watching, but no longer afraid. This is not a destination. It is a practice, a rhythm, a way of being. You do not silence fear. You learn to walk beside it, to listen, but not obey. And in doing so, you change the brain. You reshape the pathways of emotion. You soften the edges of memory. You become the author of your own safety, not by denying fear, but by understanding it. And as you continue this journey, you may begin to ask, if fear can be softened, what about pain? What about the ache that lives in the body long after the wound has healed? What happens when the nervous system holds on to what the mind has let go? Perhaps the answer lies in the part of your brain that helps you pause, reflect, and choose again. Let's follow that question into the next chapter. Chapter 6. The Prefrontal Light. Reason, Reflection, and Reconnection. The summary of this chapter: your prefrontal cortex is the lantern in the dark, your center of reflection. Trauma dims its glow, but attention and care rekindle its light. It helps you pause, breathe, and choose new responses. Tonight, you'll learn how thought can soften emotion, and how awareness becomes a bridge back to yourself. There is a light inside your mind. It does not flicker like fire. It does not blaze like the sun. It glows, steady, quiet, thoughtful. This light lives in your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain just behind your forehead. It is the seat of reflection, of choice, of awareness. When the world feels overwhelming, this light helps you pause. It helps you breathe. It helps you ask, what do I need right now? It is not fast. It is not loud. It does not rush to conclusions. It waits. It watches. It considers. This is the part of you that can step back from emotion, from impulse, from reaction. It is the lantern in the dark, not to erase the shadows, but to help you see them clearly. But trauma dims this light, not because it is broken, but because the brain must choose between survival and reflection. When danger feels near, the amygdala takes over. It floods the system with urgency. It pulls energy away from the prefrontal cortex, away from thought, toward reaction. This is not a flaw. It is protection. It is the brain's way of saying, there is no time to think, just act. But when the danger has passed, the light must be rekindled. The lantern must be relit. The prefrontal cortex must be invited back into the conversation. This is where healing begins, not in silencing emotion, but in softening it with awareness. You begin by noticing your breath, noticing your thoughts, noticing the space between stimulus and response. This space is sacred. It is where choice lives. It is where you remember that you are not your fear, not your anger, not your pain. You are the one who observes. You are the one who decides. The prefrontal cortex helps you do this. It helps you name what you feel. It helps you hold it gently, without judgment. Imagine a child crying in the dark. You do not silence them. You sit beside them. You listen. You offer comfort. This is what the prefrontal cortex does for your emotions. It sits beside them. It listens. It offers calm. And in that calm, something shifts. The emotion softens. The body relaxes. The mind clears. You begin to see options. You begin to see paths. You begin to see yourself not as a victim of reaction, but as a participant in healing. This is the gift of reflection. It does not erase pain. It does not deny fear. It holds them with clarity and care. And the more you practice, the stronger this light becomes. The more often you pause, the more easily you return to calm. This is neuroplasticity again, the brain's ability to change through repetition, through attention, through intention. Each time you choose to breathe instead of react, you strengthen the prefrontal cortex. Each time you name your feeling instead of becoming it, you build new pathways. And slowly, the light grows. The lantern glows brighter. The space between feeling and action expands. You begin to trust yourself. You begin to feel safe, not just in your body, but in your mind. This is reconnection, the return of thought to emotion, the return of choice to reaction. You may still feel fear. You may still feel anger, but you do not lose yourself in them. You walk beside them. You guide them. And in guiding them, you guide yourself. This is the path of healing. Not the absence of emotion, but the presence of awareness. You begin to notice patterns. You begin to notice stories. You begin to ask, is this true? Is this mine? Is this now? These questions matter. They help you separate past from present. They help you see what belongs to you and what was given to you without your consent. The prefrontal cortex helps you rewrite, not with force, but with curiosity. It helps you say, I feel this, but I am more than this. I remember this, but I can choose differently now. This is the light. This is the lantern. This is the part of you that can walk through the dark without becoming it. And as you walk, you begin to reconnect to yourself, to others, to the world. You begin to feel not just safe, but whole. You begin to feel not just calm, but clear. And as you continue this journey, and in that clarity, you begin to wonder, if thought can soften emotion, what else can it do? Can it reshape memory? Can it reframe pain? Can it help you find meaning in what once felt meaningless? Or perhaps the deeper healing lies not in thought at all, but in sensation, in the quiet language of breath, posture, and movement. Let's follow that question into the next chapter. Chapter 7. The Body Remembers. Somatic Pathways to Healing. The summary of this chapter. Your body holds stories your mind may forget. Tension, posture, breath, all speak the language of trauma. But movement, touch, and stillness can rewrite those stories. You'll explore how healing begins not in words, but in sensation, where memory lives in muscle and safety is felt, not spoken. You lie still, but your body is not silent. It hums with memory. Not the kind you can name or narrate, but the kind that lives in the curve of your shoulders, the tightness in your jaw, the way your breath catches when the world feels too close. This is the body's language. It speaks in posture, in tension, in the rhythm of your inhale and exhale. It remembers what your mind has tried to forget. Moments of fear, of helplessness, of overwhelm. They settle into muscle and fascia, into the nervous system's quiet archive. You may not recall the exact words spoken, but your chest tightens when someone raises their voice. You may not remember the moment you felt unsafe, but your legs grow restless when the room grows quiet. This is not imagination. This is biology. Your body is a storyteller. It has always been listening, and now it asks to be heard. Trauma is not just an event. It is an imprint, a pattern of protection that outlives the danger. The nervous system learns to brace, to guard, to anticipate. And even when the threat is gone, the body may still behave as if it's just around the corner. But here's the quiet miracle. Just as the body remembers pain, it can also remember safety. And that memory can be restored, not through logic, but through sensation. You begin with breath, not the kind you force, but the kind you notice, the gentle rise and fall, the way air moves through you, like waves brushing the shore. Breath is the bridge. It connects the conscious and the unconscious. It speaks to the vagus nerve, the great communicator between brain and body. When you breathe slowly, you tell your nervous system, it's okay, you're safe now. And the body listens. You explore movement, not exercise, not performance, but intuitive motion. Stretching your arms overhead, rolling your shoulders, swaying gently from side to side. You begin to inhabit yourself again. Movement is medicine. It releases what words cannot. It shakes loose the frozen places, the held breath, the clenched fists. You try stillness, not as a demand, but as an invitation to sit, to lie down, to feel the weight of your body supported by the earth, to notice the sensation of gravity, the way it holds you without asking anything in return. Stillness is not absence, it is presence. It is the moment when the body says, I am here, I exist, I belong. You learn to touch with intention, a hand on your heart, a palm on your belly. These gestures are ancient. They signal comfort, connection, care. They activate receptors that calm the stress response, that whisper to your cells, you are not alone. Somatic healing is not about fixing. It is about listening. It is about creating space for the body to speak its truth and for you to respond with kindness. You begin to notice patterns, how your shoulders lift when you feel uncertain, how your breath shortens when you feel watched, how your spine curls inward when you feel ashamed. These are clues, not flaws, not failures, just messages from a body that has been trying to protect you. And as you notice, you begin to choose, to lower your shoulders, to lengthen your breath, to open your chest, not because you're forcing change, but because you're offering safety. The nervous system is plastic. It can learn, it can unlearn, it can rewire. This is the gift of neurobiology. The circuits that once fired in fear can be rerouted through care, through connection, through repeated experiences of safety. You begin to trust sensation, to let it guide you, to ask, what does my body need right now? A stretch, a sigh, a walk, a nap? You stop overriding. You start honoring. And slowly, the body begins to soften. Not all at once, not forever, but in moments. Moments when you feel your feet on the ground. Moments when your breath flows freely. Moments when you laugh without bracing. Moments when you cry without collapsing. These are signs of healing. Not dramatic, not loud, but real. You learn that trauma recovery is not a straight line. It is a spiral. You revisit old places, but with new tools. You feel old sensations, but with new awareness. And each time, you deepen your capacity to stay present, to stay kind, to stay connected. You begin to see your body not as a battleground, but as a companion. Not as something to control, but as something to care for. You begin to feel at home. And in that home, you discover new rooms, places where joy lives, where pleasure is welcome, where rest is sacred. You realize that healing is not just the absence of pain. It is the presence of aliveness. You begin to dance. Not for anyone else, just for yourself. You let your body move the way it wants to move. You let it speak in rhythm, in sway, in stillness. And it tells you, I remember, I release, I return. You begin to touch the world differently, to walk with more ease, to breathe with more depth, to listen with more openness. You begin to feel the pulse of life, not just in your thoughts, but in your skin, your spine, your breath. And in that pulse, you find something ancient, something wise, something whole. Your body is not broken. It is brilliant. It is brave. It is becoming. And as you lie here, held by gravity, cradled by breath, you feel the quiet truth. Healing begins in sensation, in the language beneath language, in the rhythm beneath reason. And as you continue this journey, you begin to wonder, if the body can remember pain, can it also remember joy? Can it hold not just the ache, but the awe? Can presence itself become a kind of healing, not through silence, but through listening with kindness? Let's follow that question into the next chapter. Chapter 8, Mindfulness and the Rewiring of Awareness. The summary of this chapter: Mindfulness is not silence. It's listening with kindness. It teaches your brain to notice without judgment, to soften without fear. Like watching ripples fade on a pond, awareness calms the mind. You'll learn how presence rewires perception and how attention becomes a gentle act of healing. You begin with a breath, not to control it, but to notice it, the way it enters, the way it leaves, the way it carries you, softly, steadily, into this moment. This is mindfulness, not a technique, not a performance, but a way of being. A quiet turning toward what is, without needing it to be different. You sit, or lie down, or simply pause, and you begin to observe, not with judgment, but with curiosity, not with effort, but with ease. Your thoughts come and go. Some are loud, some are subtle. Some carry stories, some carry fears. But you do not chase them. You do not fight them. You watch them, like clouds drifting across a wide sky. This is the practice, to notice, to allow, to return. And each time you return, to breath, to body, to now, you strengthen a pathway in the brain, a neural thread of presence, a circuit of calm. The prefrontal cortex, your lantern of reflection, begins to glow a little brighter. It helps you pause, choose, respond. It quiets the alarm bells of the amygdala, softens the grip of reactivity. Mindfulness is not about emptying the mind. It's about befriending it. It's about sitting beside your thoughts as you would sit beside a stream, watching the ripples, feeling the flow, knowing you are not the water, but the witness. You notice sensations, the warmth of your hands, the weight of your body, the subtle hum beneath your skin. These are not distractions. They are invitations to come home to yourself. You notice emotions, not to fix them, but to feel them, to let sadness rise like a tide and fall again, to let joy flicker like candlelight, to let anger burn, then cool. And in this noticing, something shifts. You stop being afraid of feeling. You stop bracing against experience. You begin to trust that you can stay present, even when it's hard. This is neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to change, to rewire, to learn new ways of being. Each moment of mindfulness is a moment of rewiring, a moment of healing. You begin to see patterns, how your mind jumps to judgment, how your body tenses with uncertainty, how your breath shortens with stress, and instead of reacting, you pause, you breathe, you choose. This is the gift of awareness. It creates space, space between stimulus and response, space for compassion, space for choice. You learn to name what you feel, not to label it, but to understand it. I feel anxious. I feel tired. I feel hopeful. And in naming, you create distance. You become the observer, not the overwhelmed. You begin to practice kindness, not just toward others, but toward yourself. You notice your inner critic, and you soften it. You notice your self-doubt, and you hold it gently. Mindfulness is not passive. It is active care. It is the decision to stay, to listen, to love. You bring this presence into daily life, into the way you eat, the way you walk, the way you speak. You begin to notice beauty, the curve of a leaf, the warmth of sunlight, the rhythm of footsteps. You begin to notice pain, not to avoid it, but to meet it, to sit with it, to breathe through it. And in that sitting, you find strength. You begin to notice others, their expressions, their tone, their energy. You listen not just with ears, but with heart. You respond not just with words, but with presence. Mindfulness becomes a way of relating, a way of connecting, a way of being in the world without losing yourself. You begin to feel spacious, not empty, but open, not detached, but grounded. You begin to feel whole. And as you continue this journey, and in that wholeness, you begin to wonder, if awareness can rewire perception, can it also reshape identity? Can it help you see yourself, not just as a survivor, but as someone becoming? And if presence can heal from within, what happens when it's shared? When safety is felt in the warmth of another's gaze, in the rhythm of laughter, in the quiet of being understood. Let's follow that question into the next chapter. Chapter 9. Connection as Medicine. The Neurobiology of Belonging. The summary of this chapter: you are wired for connection. Your brain blooms in safe company. Trauma isolates, but relationships rebuild the bridges. Oxytocin, empathy, and shared laughter reshape your emotional landscape. Tonight, you'll feel how closeness heals what fear once fractured, and how being seen can help you remember who you are. You are not meant to heal alone. Even though pain may have taught you isolation, your biology tells a different story. You are wired for connection. Your nervous system listens for safety, not just in solitude, but in the presence of others. From the moment you were born, your brain began mapping the world through touch, tone, and gaze. A caregiver's smile, a soothing voice, the rhythm of a heartbeat against your own. These were your first medicines, and they still are. Connection is not a luxury. It is a need, as vital as breath, as nourishing as sleep. When you feel seen, your body softens. When you feel safe, your brain blooms. Oxytocin, the bonding hormone, flows through you like warm light. It lowers cortisol, calms the amygdala, and opens the door to trust. It's released in hugs, in shared laughter, in eye contact that lingers with kindness. You don't have to earn it. You only have to receive it. But trauma complicates this. It teaches the body to brace, to expect harm, to retreat from closeness. It builds walls where bridges once stood. And even when love is offered, the nervous system may not believe it. This is not your fault. It is your body's way of surviving. But survival is not the same as living. And slowly, gently, you can begin to choose connection again. It starts with presence, with someone who stays, who listens without fixing, who holds space without rushing. Their calm becomes your mirror. Their steadiness becomes your anchor. And your nervous system begins to learn. Not all closeness is dangerous. Not all vulnerability leads to pain. You begin to feel the difference between being watched and being seen, between being touched and being held, between being heard and being understood. Empathy is the bridge. It's not just emotional, it's biological. When someone attunes to you, their mirror neurons reflect your experience. Their body echoes your emotion. And in that resonance, you feel less alone. You begin to trust again. Not all at once, not without fear, but in moments. Moments when you laugh and forget to guard your heart. Moments when you cry and someone stays. Moments when you speak and your words are received with care. These moments matter. They reshape your emotional landscape. They rewire your brain to expect safety instead of threat. Connection is not always grand. Sometimes it's a shared silence, a gentle touch, a knowing glance. These small gestures carry enormous weight. They tell your nervous system, you belong. And belonging is healing. It regulates your breath, your heart rate, your stress response. It helps you feel grounded in a world that once felt unsafe. You begin to reach out, to send a message, to ask for help, to share a story. And each time, you stretch the muscles of trust. You begin to receive a kind word, a warm hug, a moment of shared joy. And each time, you soften the armor of isolation. You begin to connect not just with others, but with yourself. Because being seen by someone else helps you see yourself more clearly, not as broken, but as brave, not as too much, but as enough. Relationships become mirrors. They reflect your worth, your beauty, your resilience, and slowly you begin to believe it. You begin to choose people who feel like safety, who speak with kindness, who honor your boundaries, who celebrate your growth. And you begin to become that person for others. You offer presence, you offer empathy, you offer love, and in giving, you also receive. Connection is reciprocal. It flows both ways. It nourishes both hearts. It heals both wounds. You begin to understand that healing is relational, that your nervous system thrives in co-regulation, that your brain rewires through shared experience. You begin to feel joy, not the kind that demands performance, but the kind that arises from being together, from laughing until your stomach aches, from crying without shame, from sitting in silence and knowing you're not alone. This joy is medicine. It floods your system with warmth, with light, with life. And as you continue this journey, if connection can heal what fear once fractured, what else can it awaken? What happens when you not only feel safe, but feel inspired? Let's follow that question into the next chapter. Chapter 10. The Rewritten Self, Becoming Whole. Again, the summary of this chapter: healing is not forgetting. It's becoming someone new with old wisdom. Your brain rewrites its story not to erase pain, but to grow beyond it. Like a tree with scars in its bark, you remain strong, rooted, alive. You'll end this journey with a soft truth. You are already rebuilding. And the story continues, rewritten not alone, but in love. You've come far, not in distance, but in depth. Through breath and body, through memory and meaning, you've walked the quiet path of healing. And now, you arrive at a clearing. Not an ending, but a soft beginning. A place where the past no longer defines you, but informs you. Where pain is not erased, but integrated. This is the rewritten self. You are not who you were. And that is not a loss. It is a becoming. A slow unfolding of strength, of softness, of self. Your brain has changed. Not overnight, but through each moment of presence, each breath of safety, each act of kindness. Neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to rewire, has been quietly at work. Like roots growing beneath the surface, like stars shifting in the night sky. You've learned to pause, to reflect, to choose, and in those choices, new pathways have formed. Pathways of compassion, of courage, of connection. You've learned to feel, not just the ache, but the awe, not just the fear, but the freedom. And in feeling, you've reclaimed your body, your breath, your being. You've learned to listen to your thoughts, to your sensations, to your needs. And in listening, you've rewritten the story from one of survival to one of becoming. You are like a tree, scarred, yes, but still growing, still reaching toward light, still rooted in truth. Your scars are not shameful. They are sacred. They mark where you've been, but they do not limit where you're going. You begin to see yourself not as broken, but as whole, not as damaged, but as deep, not as fragile, but as beautifully complex. This is integration, the weaving together of past and present, of pain and possibility. You begin to tell your story differently, not to seek pity, but to share wisdom, not to relive the wound, but to reveal the growth. You begin to live differently, with more ease, with more grace, with more trust. You begin to love differently, with clearer boundaries, with deeper empathy, with open-hearted presence. And in this loving, you continue to heal. Because healing is not a solo act. It is relational. It is mirrored in connection, in laughter, in shared silence. You begin to notice joy, not as a fleeting spark, but as a steady glow. You begin to notice peace, not as an absence of noise, but as a presence of clarity. You begin to notice yourself, not as a stranger, but as a companion, not as someone to fix, but as someone to honor. You are already rebuilding, not from scratch, but from truth, not in haste, but in harmony. And as you rest here, in this chapter of becoming, you feel the quiet truth. You are whole, not perfect, not finished, but whole. And wholeness is not a destination. It is a way of being, a way of walking through the world with softness and strength. And somewhere in the world, someone listens to this story beneath a blanket of stars. Maybe it's late evening in a quiet room, or early morning in a place where sleep still lingers. Maybe you're lying in bed, phone resting beside you, eyes heavy, heart open. Wherever you are, this moment is yours. You've traveled through breath and body, through memory and meaning, through connection and becoming. And now, as the night deepens, you rest in the truth that healing is already underway. You are not alone. You are not behind. You are not broken. You are becoming. So close your eyes now. Let your breath be soft. Let your body be held. Let your mind be quiet. Good night, dear listener. You are safe. You are seen. You are loved. And when you wake, the journey continues. Into the next episode, Neuroplasticity in Love. How relationships rewrite the brain. Where we'll explore how closeness not only comforts, but transforms. How love, in its quiet brilliance, can rewire the very fabric of your being. Sleep well. The story is still unfolding.